Hello everyone, I'm Puneet. So today I'm going to be presenting on my residency project that I've been working on for the past year. Just a note for those of you who have a copy of the slides, they have been updated, so I'll provide my contact information at the end and I can send you a copy. So the title of my project is Evaluation of Chronic Kidney Disease Symptom Management Algorithms and Guidelines and Patient Information Sheets in 2 kidney care clinics. The principal investigator for the project is Dr. Monica Bolio. Co-investigators include myself, Dr. Hilary Wu, Dr. Nadia Leonardo, and Dr. Judith Mann. So just a little bit of background. As we all know, as chronic kidney disease progresses, symptoms related to chronic kidney disease also appear. One of the major goals of the kidney care clinic is symptom management and improvement of quality of life for our patients. However, there is little published data available in the non-dialysis chronic kidney disease population regarding symptom management. So in an effort to address patient symptoms in a more systematic manner, the BC Renal Agency has implemented the Edmonton Symptom Assessment Score tool, also known as ESAS. This is a tool that has been validated in the end-stage renal disease population. I'll discuss a little bit more about the tool later. Additionally, the BC Renal Agency has developed 8 symptom management algorithms and accompanying patient information sheets to aid in the management of these common symptoms encountered in this population. So here's an example of one of the algorithms. Basically, these algorithms allow for the healthcare professionals in the clinic to address and manage patient symptoms in a more systematic way. So this is a specific algorithm for arthritis. And here we have a accompanying patient information sheet. And really what it does is it serves as a tool for patient education. So a little bit more about the ESAS tool. This tool consists of 12 questions. Patients, they rate their symptoms from 0, which is no symptoms, to 10, which is severe symptoms. So a score of 1 to 3 represents mild symptoms. A score of 4 to 6 represents moderate symptoms. And a score of 7 to 10, it represents severe symptoms. So really what the tool allows for is systematic screening of the symptoms and then follow-up of these symptoms over time. So here is the ESAS tool that we use in the kidney care clinic. And patients will fill out this tool when they come to the kidney care clinic, and then they take the tool when they go see the different professionals during their appointment, and this allows for their symptoms to be addressed and a management plan to be created. So for our project, our objectives are as follows. The first objective was to assess patients' ESAS score before and after implementation of these BC Renal Agency symptom management algorithms and guidelines. We also wanted to assess chronic kidney disease patient satisfaction after receiving care following these guidelines and patient information sheets. And we also wanted to assess renal nurses and renal dietitian satisfaction with these algorithms and patient information sheets, as they're the primary healthcare professionals that will be utilizing these tools in the clinic. So our study design was a prospective, quantitative, and qualitative study. Our study was broken down into 2 phases. Phase 1, participants were selected from the St. Paul's Hospital and Vancouver General Hospital outpatient kidney care clinic for interviews. And for phase 2, we conducted focus groups with renal nurses and renal dietitians that work at St. Paul's Hospital and Vancouver General Hospital kidney care clinic. So I'm going to go over our inclusion and exclusion criteria. We'll start with phase 1. Our inclusion criteria is as follows. So we included non-dialysis end-stage renal disease patients that attended the kidney care clinic at these 2 sites. Patients were required to have an ESAS score of greater than or equal to 4 for poor appetite, nausea, fatigue, or insomnia, and pruritus. And their age had to be greater than or equal to 19 years. So we chose these particular symptoms as at our site. These symptoms are commonly encountered by the patient. Additionally, we wanted to choose 2 symptoms that related more to the practice of nurses, so fatigue, insomnia, and pruritus, and 2 symptoms that related to the practice of dietitians, poor appetite, and nausea, since they are the professionals most commonly using these tools, as earlier mentioned. An ESAS score of greater than or equal to 4 was chosen as our cutoff point, as the ESAS tool itself recommends that when a patient has a score that is greater than or equal to 4, this requires further assessment and creation of a symptom management plan for the patient. And our inclusion criteria for a phase one were if the participants were unable to speak. For phase two, our inclusion criteria were renal nurses and renal dietitians who worked in the kidney care clinic at these sites. And we excluded renal nurses and dietitians who had not used the symptom management algorithm at least twice prior to the focus. So for phase one, the baseline characteristics were as follows. We had 8 patients in total. We had four males and 4 females. The mean age was about 69 years. The mean duration of chronic kidney disease was about 154 months, and their mean duration of care at the kidney care clinic was about 58 months. So, as I mentioned, we had 8 patients that were enrolled in our study. As for the staff at the kidney care clinic, patients received symptom management recommendations twice for poor appetite, once for nausea, 3 times for pruritus, and 5 times for fatigue. However, not all patients recognized that they received recommendations for symptom management. So, as for the patient interviews, 2 patients recognized that they received information on poor appetite. 1 patient recognized that they received information on nausea, 2 for pruritus, and none of the patients actually recognized that they received management recommendations. So basically, we had 5 patients that were available for us to assess full symptom management. So I'm going to go on to our results. I'm going to start with our change in ESAS score. So from the results, we can see that for the majority of the patients, there was an improvement in the ESAS score, with the exception of 1 patient. From the patient interviews, it was revealed that the recommendations made to the patient were at least somewhat helpful. None of the recommendations made worsened the patient's quality of life. And patients found the information sheets were helpful and easy to use. So from the patient interviews, I was able to identify some common themes. The 3 major themes that I identified were patient-centric care, patient education, and standardized care. So to highlight some common sub-themes within these themes, I'll start with patient-centered care. Patients found that the patient information sheets were quite friendly. And under patient education, patients found that the patient information sheet was informative and helpful for their symptom management. In terms of renal nurse and dietitian satisfaction, these professionals were generally satisfied with the algorithms and the patient information sheet. From the focus groups, I also was able to identify some common themes. These included standardized care, patient-centric care, follow-up, patient education, and accountability. So just to highlight some of the more common sub-themes that came up, under standardized care, the most common sub-theme was that standardized information was being asked and provided to patients. Under patient-centric care, the most common sub-theme was that these tools allowed for individualized patient care. Under follow-up, the most common sub-theme was that there were some logistical challenges with follow-up. And under patient education, a common sub-theme was that the algorithms and patient information sheets, they allowed for better patient education and information retention. So just to highlight some of these themes that I've discussed, I pulled out a few quotes that are directly from the patients during the interviews. So one patient said that it gave me an outline of what to expect. Another patient said it convinced me that it was okay to go with what my doctor suggested. And this was in relation to some of the recommendations that were on the patient handout for pruritus. The renal nurses and dietitians, so some of the quotes, just to highlight, I'll go over the first one. You have a standard way of giving the same message. So even if I don't see the patient at the next visit, the next person can give the same information and reinforce the same points rather than giving new points and overwhelming the patient. So some limitations of our study was the small sample size. Unfortunately, we weren't able to recruit as many patients as we wanted. Only 3 of our 4 intended symptom management tools could be assessed, and our sample size was too small to present data on the individual symptom management algorithms. So from the patient interviews and focus groups, we've come up with some suggestions for further improvement. The first is for the availability of these patient information sheets in different languages, as many of the patients who attend the kidney care clinic don't speak English as their first language. Another recommendation is incorporation of more visual and less text into the patient information sheets to make them more patient-friendly and to allow them to serve as a better education tool. Another recommendation is to allow more time for discussion during the kidney care clinic during of the symptom management algorithm and guidelines of the patient. Another recommendation is having a more standardized method for follow-up of the symptoms addressed and recommendations made during the clinic. And a final recommendation was further investigation as to why patients did not perceive that information was for symptom management was provided to them, specifically for our fatigue algorithm. So our conclusions were that the majority of ESAT scores they did improve after interventions were made. Patients perceived that the information sheets were helpful and easy to use, and our renal nurses and dietitians are satisfied with the symptom management algorithms, and guidelines, and patient information sheets. Thank you, everyone, and I'll be happy to take any questions.